I get the roadblocks in Congress, and I get your kind of root cause work in the long term. I'm saying if you're a voter in the short term who is saying, is our border secure, and what is this administration's answer to that? What's that answer?
The answer is that we are absolutely making it secure and putting resources into it to do that work.
You can tell he believes that. It is the Martha Zoller Show. How can she say, I guess she doesn't have a straight face, okay? I mean, she laughs a lot, and that's okay. I think in her job you have to. But how can she say, after all we've been through, that we have a secure border? Let's play that again. I want people to hear this one more time. Let's play it again.
A voter in the short term who is saying, I get the roadblocks in Congress, and I get your kind of root cause work in the long term. I'm saying if you're a voter in the short term who is saying, is our border secure, and what is this administration's answer to that? What's that answer?
The answer is that we are absolutely making it secure and putting resources into it to do that work.
I just don't see how she can say that. I mean, it is just unbelievable to me that people would make that kind of comment. Talking about in getting up as a leader and saying, you know what? And it's hard. The longer you wait, the harder it is. I don't know. I mean, Lord knows I've made big mistakes in my life. And the ones that still wake me up at night are the ones where I kept thinking I could fix it before anybody found out. Have you ever done that, Logan? Have you ever done that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You think, I can fix it before anybody finds out.
Nope.
And then everything will be fine. And then what happens is it gets worse. What I'm thankful for is most of those things happened in my youth. And by the time I got to be about, 35, I didn't try. And I know people think they're not in their youth up until 35, but believe me, it's almost 65. Yes, that is still your youth. You've got to, the sooner you go, and this is what I learned to do. I learned that the minute I made a mistake, I would go in and say, hey, boss, whoever. I remember Joyce, who was my boss at the Purdue office. If I had some interaction with a voter or something where it didn't go exactly the way it should, or they were mad at me, or they felt slighted, that I went in there immediately. I said, hey, this just happened. Here's how I think we can fix it. But what are your thoughts? Because then you're making it a team effort, right? This is what has to happen. This is what should have happened the first month that it was like 200,000. Okay, not the 20th month, not the 25th month. The first month, it was out of control. Instead of trying to, wave the wand and get rid of it, they should have said, you know what? Maybe we were wrong here. Let's reverse this back to the way it was.
Yeah, it's just been a mess.
It's a mess. It's kind of like, okay, Medicare. Here's a good one. You'll love this one. The projection for Medicare for the first 30 years was that they would spend $6 billion. I mean, you're laughing at this now. I hear you all laughing over your car radio because it's, billions of dollars a year now, in the tens of billions of dollars a year. And they spent that $6 billion in 3 years. So in 1967, they knew they had a problem with the way they were figuring out payments in Medicare. In 1967, hardly anybody was on Medicare. I mean, there were people on Medicare, but that was still in the time of if you lived to be 65, you didn't live to be 70. Okay, this was before we started being a victim of our own success. Now, if you live to be 65, you're going to live to be 85. Okay, so we knew in 1967, Bob Anderson, who was just one of the best doctors in town, he was part of that committee. He's passed away now. He was part of that original Medicare committee. And I remember he came in here and told that story. One of the first times I was ever talking about Medicare. And he said, yeah, I was on this committee. And we knew in 1967 that we had a funding model that didn't work. Can you imagine if someone had come forward then and just said, you know what? We need to relook at this. Because there weren't so many people on it. There weren't a whole bunch of people that had worked 40 years to try to get it. and didn't want it changed, and then we're going to get up in arms if you made any changes. We weren't there yet. We could have made the changes. And this is what I'm talking about related to oversight. We have got to have ongoing oversight of programs. And we've got to have accountability. The idea that something has, quote, always been in the budget doesn't mean it should always be in the budget. And nothing should be off limits. And that's why I support Johnny Isaacson. His biennial budget bill. It isn't being introduced right now. But I'll tell you why I support it. Because what you would do is you would do a 2-year budget. I know. You're laughing at your radio again. I can hear you. Because they can't even do a 1-year budget. Okay? But the theory is, bear with me, you do a 2-year budget, and then in the off year, where you already have a budget, you go line by line through the budget, and you look for problems, overlap, problems, overspending, programs we're not using. Because the dirty little secret is that even if we're not using something, that money still gets allocated, and it sits there. We are still operating on COVID money. We're not spending it for COVID anymore. We're spending it for other things now. Okay? We are still operating on COVID money. All we have to do is go back to the 2019 budget. And I think probably add some to defense, maybe add a little bit to VA. A couple of things we'd have to add to. It would still be, we would be able to balance the budget if we did that. Okay, so let's just make sure that I'm telling you the right thing here. Yes. Okay, we put out $4.4 trillion in fiscal 2019. We took in $3.5 trillion, so we had a $900 billion deficit. So, if we went back to 2019 and adjusted defense and maybe Medicare and a couple of other things, we would be at $5 trillion, which would be a balanced budget. We can do this, folks, but it takes leadership. It takes people willing to say and do the hard things. We have got to put this together. We have got to put it together. And we will. We will. Eventually, somebody is going to be a leader here. And that's one of the reasons that I really like Nikki Haley. Okay? Donald Trump doesn't talk about the budget. And that's one of the things that I talk about in my column. I wish he would, the 4 things I wish he would do if he was the nominee. Stop talking about the 2020 election cycle. Okay? He has his strongest issues are on the border, energy independence, and the economy. Talk about those. Talk about his accomplishments. Admit something he could do better. And my suggestion for that is how he talks about the budget and deficit and debt. He should acknowledge we have a budget problem and tell us how he's going to fix it. And finally, make sure whoever he chooses for VP, hopefully it's Nikki Haley, they add to the message that he's trying to convey. If he does those things, he will bring back the Republicans that he's lost. And probably some right-leaning independents and some centrist Democrats, and have a big, not a 1-point victory, but a 3, 4, 5-point victory. He might even be able to top 50% with a message like that. It's the Martha Zoller Show.